Well, good morning, everybody. We are back at it again another week, and it has been a moment of reflection for me. Well, not even a moment, it's been a few weeks of reflection for me. As you may have heard me over a few of my videos to this point, for whatever silly reason, God has put upon me to write a book. And initially, I didn't think much of it. I was like, well, that's interesting. And I kind of tore through it. Honestly, I kind of became obsessed. Spent the last 2-3 weeks, just seems like every waking hour, working on this thing. Actually tore through a shell of it in about a weekend. Truthfully, I got through majority of the book of what I wanted. Went through, started adding kind of more details, and that's where the challenge has been. Let me challenge you this. Don't do this experiment unless you want to see monumental growth in your life. I can explain it as simply as this. As we go through life, we deal with a variety of things, issues, challenges. Many. We ultimately stick back into the corners of our minds. Why? Because they probably hurt, or there's some challenges that come with that, some struggles. Midas, go lay down. Come up here. You gotta come up here, come on. Mr. Midas wants to come hang out. But a lot of them are ones that we don't want to deal with. So we take those prior hurts, those prior experiences, and we push them to the back of our mind for what we think of never to deal with again. The reality is we are still dealing with them, but our reactions to life are rooted in those experiences. So we may always think, well, that's just the way I am, or that's how God made me. And I don't think that's the case. A lot of it is the decisions we made, or in some cases, they weren't decisions we made. They were situations we were brought up in. Specifically, if you were in some type of challenging childhood situation of abuse or trauma or something. We all have our life. We all have our issues that we go through. But when we push them to the back of our brain, we think they're gone. No, they're not gone. We just forget about them, but they are interwoven into who we become as we get older. So, this idea that God put in my brain to, hey, Dan, write a book, share your story, has been one of reflection. And quite honestly, the last week or so, I've felt a little off. Normally I'm pretty optimistic. I truthfully, since I've been down here in Florida for the last 3-4 months, I feel like I've been in the zone, like crazy zone. But this last week or so has been one of introspection. And it's one thing when we go through the surface level of our life and think about, oh yeah, this happened, but then I start going through the fine details of like mentally walking back through in those shoes of those experiences as I'm writing down the words, thinking about the emotions of what I went through. It's been tough. I'm not gonna lie. Like Diana's asking me, are you okay? Did I do something wrong? And no, she didn't. It's just, you almost have to go back there, right? Those hurts, the trials, the events that happened in your life. But why is that good? You're thinking, Dan, why would I want to put myself through that excruciating pain again? Because you never dealt with it. And perhaps there's not closure to it. And I think by going through these experiences and recollecting on them, what I've been able to see, and this is part of the pain but also the journey, is, as twisted as this may sound, I had to go through that to become who I am today. Now, I don't know your situation, I don't know what you're going through, and I'm sure you've went through some crazy crap that I could only imagine of. But I do know that God brought me through. I'm here today, and He's put me in this position to sit on this video and talk to you about it. So that could be it. Maybe you aren't going to be writing a book or doing a podcast or a vlog, but perhaps there's an individual that'll come into your life that is going through a similar experience. And God brings that person in front of you that you're able to share your story, and through that provide encouragement. That's why things happen for us and not to us. So as I reflect upon these stories and write about them, I can see how this molded me to become who I am today. How every situation I had to go through was another turning point in my life. And specifically, the book I'm writing about is about my identity and how I came to terms, how I came to understanding it. But each one of these are just small glimmers, and how the crank got turned, and how I turned away from the old version of me, who as a young kid was this player hating women, to a caring, compassionate man that God always meant me to be. You know, when I was younger, that was my identity. I love people. I love hanging with people. But as I went through the crap of life, I had a real ugly outlook on people, women specifically. But I had to go through some experiences to challenge that, to get back to the core of who I am. And God used that to mold me. You know, these challenges, the Bible also talks about how we get molded and pressed. You know, like a fine diamond, you know, it's put under pressure as a piece of gold. It has to go through a refinement process, right, of heat and pressure. Well, that's our life. We have to kind of burn off those rough edges, right? We need to kind of smooth ourselves out a little bit. As we get older and we grow, we mature. The 20-year-old version of Dan is way different than the 40-plus version of Dan. Turning close to 50 here in over a year. Not yet. We're almost there. But, you know, these are points in times that we can look back upon and grow from. So now that I've kind of got my finger on why I'm off, now I can stop and, in a positive way, be thankful for those moments. Not thankful that I hurt people, not thankful that I did things wrong, but thankful that God allowed me to go through that. God allowed me to grow through that. And now I'm thankful that I'm able to show, go, grow, and show through all these elements to maybe help other people going through this journey called life. My story is uniquely to me. You have your own story. You may not go through this journey like I am, but I'm telling you, if you want to get some closure and some healing in your life, maybe you aren't writing it down, but what if you just sat and thought about it? Go back to those moments when you're a young child, a young adult. It could be something most recent that you went through. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. This is probably one of the more mentally exhausting things I've ever done in my life. And I want to quit. I do. For me, I'd rather just push a button and have it done. But yet, I got to make sure it's done right. That's one thing that's been wired in me since life, is like, if you're going to do it well and do it to the best of your ability. One of my core values for my team is be outstanding. And you can't be outstanding by doing things, 50%. But do that. Figure out yourself. Understand, why did you go through that? And if you don't know, that's where you get quiet with God and be like, Lord, help me understand why. And I'll close on this. Don't always expect an answer. We may not get that answer immediately. Truthfully, it's taken me 4, 5, maybe even close to 6 years for me to be where I am today, knowing that God is giving me this empowerment to speak, and now he's beginning to lighten the path of what that looks like and how I'm going to go through this. For you, it might be quicker. It may also be longer. So if you want to see monumental growth in your life, get real with yourself. Take inventory of your prior hurts so you can know, grow, and then show. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. Have yourself an amazing Monday. Later.